You want to hit the guy? Okay, so now we start Masechta Gittin. This starts the 5 consecutive yeshiva, what we call yeshivish and Masechtas. Right, you got Gittin, Kedushin, Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra. So that's about a year and a half. Subas we did already. We have about a year and a half straight of what we call yeshivish and Masechtas. Right, there's a lot of lumdus, etc., etc. So the first thing with get is a get does not, we call a get to something for getting divorced. Get really just means a shtar. A get means a shtar, which we use it in the terms of a divorce paper, right? The beginning of Gittin is mostly about proving signatures of and et cetera, those type of things, and later on it gets into how the get's written and all that, and then we have a lot of Gemaras about the Churban Beis Hamikdash, which we just had, right? So Taisus says that in the first Taisus he says other shtaras are called get, right? But we refer mostly, when you say get, it refers to a divorce paper, and then Taisus in the middle says a fascinating thing. So a get is supposed to be 12 lines. Right? Where do you get the 12 from? Because the gematria of get is 12. Right? That's what Taisus says. You have a gematria to start with the Masechta. Fine. Another thing, the Gra says that get are the only 2 letters in the Torah not to be together. You will not find a gimel and a tes together anywhere in the Torah. Not in the end of one word and the beginning of the next word. No, nowhere. Right, and then they say Reb Chaim found 3 more, but then he had that as a vart for them. Yeah, that was a vart for them. But anyways, okay. So the beginning of the Masechta is talking about when you bring a get has to be written lishma, right? Meaning, and this we've had before, but you can't have Gittin in a supermarket and you just take one off the shelf, see the names match, like they have those. You're muted, Rabban. You're still muted. Still not working. You're muted. It's locked.
It could be Aaron locked in mute.
You locked it, Aaron.
Good move.
He locked it. It was locked. Now try it, Aaron. Try it.
Naftali, you said good move on Rabar, and you're in trouble, man.
Well, whoever running the show in the background over there.
Why is he the only one locked?
He muted everybody.
And now he's not locked. Go ahead. You're good now, Rabar. Go ahead.
I just said you can't have a Bloomberg get. That's all.
A Bloomberg get?
Nobody knows what Bloomberg is. Bloomberg is. It used to be when you were stationary stores.
Yeah.
They had a whole aisle of basic contracts or bills of lading or different things that was standard.
I hear.
Yeah,
Russian was standard for lots of different forms.
You can still find this stuff. You can find out.
I'm mute again.
Anyways, I was thinking more of a muscle, like, you get, they have those keychains with people's names in it. So you can't just go find a get that has 2 of the same names. It has to be written Lishma.
Or Coca-Cola bottle.
Right. So right. So then the question is, do people in overseas, do they know these halachas? Right? So there's going to be a machlok. Okay, we'll see how it goes. There's going to be a machlokes Rabba and Rava, and it's going to carry us to the next few blot of all the nafkaminas between Rabba and Rava's shot in our Mishnah. So let's see. I maybe get Medina Sayam. So if somebody brings a get from overseas, so now Taisa says, why didn't you just say Chutz La'aretz? Second Taisa down. So why do we say Chutz La'aretz? Why do we say Medina Sayam? Because we're going to see in the Gemara that the cities that were on the border of Eretz Yisrael were more educated. So maybe we don't have this issue of them not knowing halacha, and maybe that the get that they brought from Chutz La'aretz was not proper. Right? We have this nowadays too in Eretz Yisrael. What? Medina
Sayam could be way closer to Eretz Yisrael than Bavel. Cyprus is a few miles from Eretz Yisrael. That's Medina Sayam.
Well, the question
Bavel is far from Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah, but that's what he's saying. The reason why Dafka chose Medina Sayam, because the things that are on the border, just because of Chutz La'aretz, doesn't mean they're going to have the same din. But anyway, so a guy shows up with a get from Medina Sayyam to give to a guy's wife. So tzarach sheyom, maybe a guy goes on a business trip. He decides he's divorcing his wife. He writes up a get, sends it with a shliach going to Eretz Yisrael. Now the question is, was the get written properly? That's the main crux of the shaila of do we trust chutz la'aretz or not? So if he does, so the Mishnah says he has to say tzarach sheyomer. The shliach has to say b'fonai nechtav u'b'fonai nechtav. I saw the get being written and I saw it being signed, which we're gonna have a machlekes why that is, but that's what he has to do. He can't, meaning the shliach can't. You can't find him outside the airport and say, "Hey, can you take this get to this person?" Right? That doesn't work. He has to say, he has to see it. I mean, when they ask you in the airport, did you pack your own bags? That's essentially what we're doing. Did you pack this? Did you write this get? Were you involved with it? Otherwise, it's not trusted. Right? Ram Gamliel Omer,
Who doesn't know the halachas?
the people in Chutz La'aretz. You don't need Rabbanim officially. We're going to see in the Gemara. We're going to say that that really they did know, but there's a chashash that they didn't know, right? So again, he says even if you bring it from Rekem and Cheger, right, which is Kaddish and borrowed from the Torah, right? These are on, like we just said, these are on the border of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, afilu mikfar ludim lelud, even from Kfar Ludim lelud. Now Kfar Ludim lelud were cities that were mamish right next to each other. One was in Chutz La'aretz, and one was, it's like sort of like New York, New Jersey, right? It's considered, it's almost like one city, but they're mamish two different countries, two different states, whatever it is.
And Detroit and Windsor is two different countries.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah.
Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, they're mamish next to each other. They're two different countries.
I hear. You don't have to say, or Niagara Falls, you could say, right? But he doesn't have to say it. Only somebody who's bringing it from Medina Sayyam and somebody who's bringing it there. So we'll see tomorrow, not tomorrow, Mr. Shav, what the pshat in this, are they disagreeing? Are they explaining? Fine. So again, the Mishnah is just saying, the shliach has to say he saw it written and he saw it signed. And then we have machlokes about border cities, if they have the same din or not. Maybe Medina Sayyam. What happens if somebody brings it from one country to another country within Medina Sayyam, right? So why don't you chashiv the same thing, that the people that wrote it didn't know the halachas properly? So tzarach sheyamrim fanei not fanei nechtam. Even from one hagmunya to another hagmunya, meaning this is within one city, but there are two hegmons. Hegmon means two bosses. It's one city. I guess it's like Berlin, the way Berlin was, maybe. I don't know. That's a different, I don't know. Basically two, maybe it means like boroughs. I don't know. Whatever it is, you'd have to bring, even from there to there, you'd have to say now he's going through the boundaries. Rabbi Yehuda says Rekem lemizrach, from the city of Rekem towards the east is called Chutz La'aretz, Medina Sayyam. The Rekem kimizrach, and Rekem is included though in Eretz Yisrael. I'm sorry, Rekem's not included. So Rekem is kimizrach. It's east of Eretz Yisrael, doesn't count. Me Ashkelon l'daram. But Ashkelon Kedarim, Ashkelon in the south, and Ashkelon is considered out. Me'akal etzafan, va'akal ketzafan. Right? And what about to the west? The west is the ocean. Right? So that's not negay. Rameir Reimer, Akko Keretz Yisrael Gittin. Rameir disagrees. He says Akko is like Eretz Yisrael for Gittin, just for Gittin, which we'll see in the Gemara what that means. Fine. I maybe get Eretz Yisrael, ain't it tzarich, but what about if you take a get from Bnei Brak to Yerushalayim? Right, so then maybe get Eretz Yisrael. You don't have to say it. V'im yeshalav oyrim though, and if there are oyrim, meaning people that are ma'orer, meaning they're saying the husband saying that it's not a true get, yiskayim b'chasamav, you should be makayim it with signatures, right? Okay.
That'll happen from everything that comes from Bnei Brak from Yerushalayim to Bnei Brak. They're not going to trust.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, from Tzvas then. But meaning there, but you have to trust it. We're saying in Eretz Yisrael you could trust it. Because we'll see in the Gemara, depending on what the reasons are. Right? Yeah, so again, when there's Eirurim, then you have to actually prove that the signatures on the get are proper. Right? Now, signing on a get, by the way, signing on a get is not the same as signing a ksuba. Sign a ksuba, you just sign your name. When you sign on a get, you have to sign it as the ksav of Sifrei Torah. Yeah, you have to be a cipher to sign a get. Or whatever. I don't know. What do? They fill out do they make the words and then they let somebody fill it in? I think that's what they do. But that's yeah, fine. Okay, so Zog Gemara, my time. So what is the reason? Why does this shliach come and have to say, why can't he just bring the get? Why don't we assume that it's kosher? Why does he have to say that he saw it written and he saw it sealed? So we got to know this machloikis here for the next few blocks. It's not a difficult machloikis, but so excuse me. So what's the reason? So Rabba Amar on Tomei Beis now. The Vishain Bekiyin Lishma. The reason is because people in Eretz Yisrael are not Bekiyin in Lishma, meaning they're not sure. The way Rashi says it right on the top line, Ein b'nei Medina Hayam b'nei Torah. They're not b'nei Torah. They ain't yodim that they have to write a get l'shem ha'isha. What?
No, you said Eretz Yisrael. It's not Eretz.
Sorry, Medina Hayam. I'm sorry, I said Eretz Yisrael. Medina Hayam, they didn't know halacha. So we have to make sure that this shliach saw the guy write the get specifically for this woman. Right? So that's what you have to say. Rava says, no, that's not the reason. The reason is because if you want to, if we every star, which we'll see in tomorrow's daf, Bez Hashem, every star has has to be makuyim, meaning you have to what's the word? You have to confirm it. That's a better word. You have to approve, whatever. You have to see that it was legit, right?
Authenticate.
So, authenticate. There you go. Very good enough. You have to authenticate it. Said by like a true
Real estate
notary, like a notary, like
right.
a notary. Said like a true notary, right? Equivalent to notary. So if you have Adam constantly traveling back and forth, which is the way it is nowadays, right? So you'd be able to confirm the signatures. You say, hey, you guys from you're from Far Rockaway. Oh, can you confirm these signatures? And then it'll be fine. But if there's nobody ever traveling back and forth, so then how are you going to confirm that it's a legitimate thing? So like this, if the shliach saw it being written and being signed, so he is an eid echad though, which the Gemara is going to discuss, he will tell us that it's okay. Okay, so my beinayu, what's the practical halachic difference between the two? So there's a few differences. That's you betray. Let's say two people come and deliver the get. Right? So if it's based on the lack of education of Chutz La'aretz, so Rabba's going to say, they still have to say this. They still have to say b'fan another, because just because it's two people doesn't mean that they know the halachas. Inami, but according to Rava says it's only for them to confirm the signatures. So two Eidim can confirm signatures, meaning if somebody comes along and says, hey, I want to make sure these signatures are legit. So, okay, we have two Eidim to say that these signatures are legit. So then according to Rava, they would not have to say that was later case later in the Mishnah, to go from one Medina to another Medina in Eretz Yisrael. So if, according to Rava, you don't have to say because people in Eretz Yisrael are educated. But according to Rava, it would depend on if people are constantly traveling back and forth, let's say from Tzfas to Yerushalayim. If it's not so common, then you'd still have to say because we don't know when we're going to get people to approve of the get. Inami. Medina Sayam, or within that Medina Sayam. So there, the Amaretz issue is an issue that people are not educated, but for the Eidim, if it's in the same Medina, the Chayra people are constantly traveling back and forth, and you'd be able to find Eidim. So those are the three practical differences between Rabba and Rava. So again, we got to know for tomorrow we'll chazir as Hashem to make sure we have the shita. But those are the two shitas. And it's going to be a lost cause if we don't remember these shitas over the next few blocks. Fine. Again, Rabbah says because people in Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz didn't know the halachas, so we have to make sure it was written l'shma. And Rabbah says because Eidim are not common. So they meaning, and since they're not common to find them, since the people are not constantly traveling back and forth, so therefore you could you have to make sure that these guys confirm it. Which is another, maybe today you could say that that people are constantly traveling back and forth would also be a nafkamina, right? Because if they're traveling back and forth, according to Rabbah, you wouldn't need it, but according to Rabbah, you would need it. Fine. Now the Gemara goes, according to Rabbah, that the reason is because they're not bekin lishma. Why shouldn't you need two? So basically what you're saying is that you have to testify that he has to testify that this get was written properly. Since when are we makabel edus from one person? He's saying edus that he saw this get being written properly and halachically. So what's up shot? Right? Why shouldn't it be two? So Gemara says a major rule, eid echad never be surin. And eid echad is believed when it comes to isurim, meaning as opposed to arayas, which we'll get to in a minute. So an eid echad is believed when it comes to isur, one person is believed, which is why we're all allowed to eat at each other's houses. Because we trust. When you say it's kosher, okay, so I trust you. Now, how do you know eid echad never be surin? So that's interesting. Machlokes Rashi Tosfos here. Rashi says,
by a lady.
So what's that? Yeah. So Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi, 5 wide lines down, says because the Torah believes each and every person on hafrashas truma and shchita and nikur hagid b'achela.
What's the might?
What? The might was a chashash because the people stopped keeping it, right? But everything else, you don't see anywhere where a guy has to have edus every time he shechts an animal, and a guy has to have edus every time he takes off chumas and maisvus, right? Doesn't it? Otherwise, it'd be crazy. Every time somebody cooks, they'd have to have edim. I mean, the hashkachas would make a bundle, right? But so that's one. So the question is, okay, so how come hashkachas? How come restaurants need hashkachas? So that already was the takana that was made that anybody that's doing restaurants for money has to have hashkacha. Has to have hashkacha. So that's why that is. Now Tosfos says we know it from Nida, right? So because they say B'Safra Allah, you don't need edus that when a woman's a Nida and she gets out of Nida, she just goes to the mikvah, right? She doesn't need edus.
She
doesn't need edus.
has a mikvah lady.
No, with that, even if you want to say that, but she's saying that she's clean, so nobody knows. You don't need edus, so that's the way Tosfos says it. Okay. Now the Gemara asks, but so we're saying again, Eidach and Nevisun. So when it says Eimadam, you need Eidach and Nevisun. When do we say Eidach and Nevisun? Could go in Chatichas. You have a piece, Chaticha, Safik Shal Chaylev, Safik Shal Shuman, right? You have a piece of fat, right? Chaylev and Shuman look exactly the same. Chaylev is Aser, Shuman is Mutter. We have no idea what its status is. Deloy is Chazik Yisura. It doesn't have a Chazaka of being Aser, right? It doesn't have a Chazaka of being Aser. So therefore, so the Aneidach is believed on it. Why shouldn't we believe him? There's no cheskas iser. Aval hachet is chazik isura deishas ish. But here, this woman is an eishas ish. We know that she got married. We all know she's a married woman. Now you want to let her get remarried to somebody as an eishas ish based on an eid echad. How can you do that? That's arayas. That's something that's erva. Davar sheba erva pachas mishnayim, and davar sheba erva is never less than 2. So again, it's not, the Gemara is saying it's not Isurim here, it's Erva. Erva needs 2 Eidim. So the Gemara answers, Roiv Bekiyan Hain, meaning Roiv of the people, even in Chutz La'aretz, are Bekiyan and they know the halachas. Right? Okay, so then why are we making this takana? Bafilu the Rameir, the Chayish Lamiyuta, and even according to Rameir, who always is concerned for the minority, right? Meaning from the small chances, Stam Sifrei the Daini Migmagmiri. Stam Seifrim are learned. So Memela, they know that it has to be Lishma. So basically, I don't know if it's a Sveka, a double Roiv. I'm not exactly sure how you understand this, but it's saying that Roiv, the people do know the halach. And there's a minority, and even the Seifrim, Roiv of them know the halach. So really everybody knows the halach. Okay, so then why do you need to say this whole thing? The Rabbanan hu da'atzruch, the Rabbanan are the ones that required it. Right? Because of either Rabba or Rava, but we're going in Rabba now. So it's because we were on the small chance, right? V'hacha, On Tamid Aleph now, Mashum Iguna Akila Barabanan. So really, the Rabbanan wanted to have 2 Eidim, but because it's Igun, meaning we don't want women to be stuck without being able to get married. So Akila Barabanan, the Rabbanan were makel to allow an Eid Echad. So again, the way it works according to Rabbah now is that really the only reason why they're requiring confirmation of this get is because of a small chance that it wasn't written properly. Right? It wasn't written properly. Then the Chama wanted to have Eidos, but we're not going to make you have 2 Eidim, because if you have 2 Eidim, that's much more difficult to get. You're going to have 2 Shluchim to have to come and say this. So the Gemara says, the Chama said 1 is enough. But again, for the small Chashash, they wanted Eidos, but 1 would be enough, because we don't want to put too many Chumras, and then women would not be able to get divorced. Okay, 9:30 on the nose, Aaron Kaplan, as promised. Baruch Hashem. All right. The Olam should have
L'chaim on starting Gittin.
yes, all L'chaim, yes.
L'chaim.
The Olam have themselves a fine